expressed on any program are those of the producer and or persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of DCTV. All producers and guests appearing on programs provide information and opinions based on information they consider to be reliable. DCTV does not affirm the completeness and accuracy. All DCTV members agree to adhere to DCTV's Statement of Compliance and are participants in a community medium forum where they're exercising their freedom of speech. All opinions expressed on any program are
Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Udis. This show is a weekly series called The Network of Global Corporate Control that has been coming to you from DCTV for over 2 years. Today's segment is called Awakened. Next week is about your role in the global currency reset. Since we are pre-taping next week's segment, you can read the teleprompter if you don't want to wait. Thanks to DCTV, Carmen Stanley, studio producer, Maurice Jackson, audio and prompter, and Cruchet Starnes, floor director. A large company that has been corrupting the politicians in all the countries, including the United States, has been beaten by a coalition to clean things up, and we are positioned to do this peacefully. What's more, that coalition is protecting me, allowing me to speak for them, and I have continued to prove that what I say is true. This is what I've written in a tweet that went viral on the internet. Because the coalition to clean up the corruption is stronger than the banking cartel. I've been using the social media on the internet and public access TV to get the word out because the other media is telling the lies of that large company, which I call the Network of Global Corporate Control and the Banking Cartel. I started to get an audience back in 2014, and that's when the Banking Cartel tried to cut off my access to the internet. Because the coalition to clean up the corruption is stronger than the Banking Cartel, that didn't work. In a tweet that went viral, I showed people the emails that I wrote that prevented me from getting kicked off the internet. I've attached them to this teleprompter. The Banking Cartel tried to kick me off the internet right after the annual meetings of the World Bank in 2014. I'll tell you what's going on with these annual meetings that took place last week in Washington later. This is what I tweeted about the 2014 annual meetings. Quote, I discussed the access to the global debt facility with Germany's alternate executive director during the annual meetings of the World Bank and IMF. I also met with the executive directors' offices of Russia and Switzerland. 188 ministers of finance have appointed me to exercise the Bretton Woods Authority under paragraph 6 of the bilateral Mansfield Breakthrough Successor Agreement that governs the global debt facility containing the world's assets. YCT, a Chinese foundation that thought I was going to write them a blank check to clean up Fukushima without any hope of supervising how they spent the money, stated, the internet links pertaining to your complaints that you've uploaded for my reading are indeed enlightening. It's no wonder that 188 members of the Bretton Woods institutions chose to reinstate you as acting general counsel of the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. I'm appalled by the responses from the Office of Inspector General of the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, stating that your concerns about the World Bank's internal controls over financial reporting, its alleged corruption, and its alleged retaliation against you for raising these issues that threaten the World Bank's credit rating and the stability of the international financial system are not and do not fall within their purview for investigation. I fully support your relentless pursuit to restore humanity and the world's patrimony for the benefit of mankind. That's the end of YCT's quote. One of the reasons I'm allowed to speak for the cleanup crew is because I was a fencer and I know how to fight. When I uploaded the teleprompter for last week's segment, the Banking Cartel tried to undermine the coalition to clean things up using one of their favorite tools, divide and conquer. The bloodline families that are behind all this corruption have been using the same dirty tricks to stay in control. We're on to them. Their tricks are now a way for us to recognize their fingerprints. Now I'm going to show you some recent comments from my followers on Twitter. The Banking Cartel is on its last legs. Virginia Garcia stated, I'm sorry, the teleprompter just cut out. Well, I've got it in paper. Virginia Garcia said, there's no President of the United States Trump while the U.S. Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. Oh, I'm sorry. Virginia said, replying to me, she said I was hilarious and that I should be president. And my comment was that there's no president of the U.S. while the U.S. Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. And we have a roll-in for that.
No, I'm going to have to do this all over again. Okay, here we are. This is what I tweeted on my social media to Slick's tweets. I wanted him to tell me why Donald Trump did not admit that the United States Constitution is not in effect, and because of that, there is no way that the Electoral College can vote him in. And I showed him and everyone else on my social media what I had written to the Electoral College, to Mr. David Ferriero. And I asked him, Mr. Ferriero, as the United States Congress has suspended the Constitution of 1789 by declaring a state of emergency, and this link will show you how that's done every single year. It's been done since 1871, which is when the Revolutionary War debts became due. And I also said that in the law, it says that the provisions of the Constitution govern. So, therefore, when the ministers of Finance and Development on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, who administer the monetary gold reserves of the United States, and I've told him what the treaty is that was signed in 1950 by General Eisenhower and also by President Truman. I say that now I am the person who votes the shares of the United States on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund during this period of interregnum until the Constitution of 1789 goes back into effect. And the way this is going to happen is via Article 5. And what happened when Anton Scalia was murdered was he was trying to put that into effect, I believe, and that was when he was murdered and flown out of Texas before there could be an autopsy to see what his cause of death was, whether it was natural or not. So then I'm saying to Mr. Ferriero, who is the person who triggers the Electoral College process, the secretaries of state of 10 states in which the Federal Reserve banks are located have filed, and that's the technical term of when the Fed owes the United States, they issued bonds, and they now are in debt for $2 quadrillion. And so I'm saying that since the Fed owes us more than we owe them, the Federal Reserve is now bankrupt. The Board of Governors has informed Illinois' Secretary of State that he had no authority to attempt to invalidate the financing statement, which was duly filed against the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And then I'm showing links to the letters that I wrote to all of the ministers of finance and development, because when the Secretary of State of Illinois said that we had no right to file that financing statement, they were wrong, and the ministers of finance and development cleared my letter telling the Secretary of State of Illinois that he had to put that financing statement back into effect. I say the Federal Reserve banks are insolvent and are being wound down in the global debt facility. On behalf of the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, I have informed Germany and Japan that the monetary gold reserves of the United States in the global debt facility are being deployed to enable the United States to fulfill its treaty obligations in defense of Germany and Japan. And this, if you click on that link, when you get this document, you will find my letter to the military attaches in Washington, Germany and Japan. And on the 22nd of July, I posted this on the internet. I say that the Universal Postal Union was established in 1874. That's
Well, it's no coincidence that the teleprompter has been having a few problems. There's a comment which I have in the teleprompter, you can read along with me, that was for some reason cut out of the script. And that's really the most important sentence. It's from a comment from somebody named Kagsil. Keep at it. Those who are awakened are doing more damage than many others realize. Those of us awakened will continue to wake up others. Now, my job is to show you how to recognize the truth. This is called critical thinking. Sad to say, some people are being prevented from thinking straight because of very advanced military technology. This technology uses extremely low-frequency sound waves. Some of this weaponry was used against people in the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. The patents for this technology are out on the internet. This weaponry is very widespread, and it's also being used against the civilian population. Some people are more susceptible to this scalar technology than others. The way to protect yourself from the scalar waves is to talk things over with people who know you very well and who you trust. Don't decide anything suddenly. Think things through and talk to the people you trust about things. The military are able to hack into people's minds after recognizing brain waves by using electrocardiograms. Our brains are like modems, and we process our thoughts and actually think elsewhere. The banking cartel tried to prevent me from telling you about the scientist who has described the collective unconscious. The banking cartel cannot prevent us from doing anything at all because the banking cartel depends on us. All of humanity is united and has already decided to get rid of the corruption in our money system. I'm not deciding these things. We all are. I'm allowed to tell you these things because I'm respectful of the collective unconscious. In August, I told you how a scientist describes the collective unconscious where we actually think. Obviously, all of humanity has to process this in the global currency reset. There's great meaning in the fact that I'm working with everyone to put Jose Rizal's and Ferdinand Marcos's and John F. Kennedy's and Bobby Kennedy's and Martin Luther King's and Ronald Reagan's and all our ancestors' dreams together. The banking cartel tried to remove this link, but I put it back and then told everyone that this was checkmate. And it looks like we're having some more teleprompter problems. The banking cartel is obviously hacking into our equipment here. Okay, so let's see. I've got it on hard copy. Okay, I'll tell you about this year's annual meeting at the World Bank. And it was really fascinating for me because I have to work on these things in real time. And some of you saw that the banking cartel hacked into my printer, and I had to go and fix it, which I ultimately did. And then I mailed copies to the embassies, and not a single embassy has objected to what I wrote in the minutes. And there's a good reason for that. That's because they know that that would instantly put the entire world into World War III, because we are now on a path with the global currency reset to prevent World War III. It's the banking cartel that's trying to instigate World War III, and we're just not going there. It was the banking cartel you saw that tried to nuke Charleston, South Carolina, and the people in the military, 70% of the people in the U.S. military, are just not listening to the brass that they know are traitors. And the point is that we in the United States and in all the rest of the world have to access the monetary gold reserves that are on deposit with the World Bank's Board of Governors. That they were put there after World War II, and they're going to be coming out. And one of the questions that I'm always asked is, when is this going to happen? And the point is that it actually will happen, but we have to finish diagnosing the corruption. You can imagine if tomorrow we were to take the global currency reset into account, there would be a lot of confusion because not enough people are on board. We've reached critical mass, that we know, but people have to reach out and convince other people what's actually going on. And what you're hearing on DCTV, this is reality. And what you read in the newspapers, that's what the banking control wants you to think. And since most people believe what they read, or actually now there are a lot of people that don't believe what's in the press, they've learned that it's really not true. But there's still something called a normalcy bias. And so we need to have more people on board so that there won't be general panic. And that's what's going on now. People that understand that what I'm telling you is actual reality are reaching out to other people, and pretty soon we're going to be able to do this. And the chances that we do have the global currency reset, we know this is more than 90%, but we're just not ready to move yet because we're not ready. There aren't enough people that understand what I'm telling you. But there are enough people to educate the rest, and that's where we are. That's what's going on. Okay, and now it looks like we've got the teleprompter again. Okay, if you can scroll down a little further, all right, that's fine. The minutes that I wrote are the real minutes, and not a single embassy has renounced them. I tweeted an electronic copy of the letter that went to Indonesia's embassy and the chair of the Board of Governors, Sri Mulyani Indrawati. The minutes of the Development Committee are as set forth in my letter, and any country that doesn't agree is required to go on record in writing. The U.S. Postal Office has confirmed that the hard copy of the letter was delivered. And I'll let you read the letter for yourselves because I want to spend the rest of the segment talking about that imposter, Donald Trump. I'm going to talk about the people working for the companies owned by the banking cartel, too. We will all be free of this monetary system and everyone will be happier. Another way to recognize that we're ready to embark on the global currency reset is to think about what a tweet means that I said. It's the banking cartel dropped the attachments to this link, so I uploaded them here. None of the embassies has objected to the minutes, and neither did Sri Mulyani Indrawati, the chair of the Board of Governors. In the last link, you can see that the U.S. Post Office delivered the letter. I've already accused Megan Brennan, the U.S. Postmaster General, twice of postal fraud. I guess that Megan Brennan didn't want to commit postal fraud a third time. And Raven Quest had a comment about the gold around our flag, and he said that that was right. I said that his comment actually was right to the point. President Eisenhower signed Executive Order 10834 on August 21st, 1959. It's printed in the Federal Register, and it says, "A military flag is a flag that resembles the regular flag of the U.S., except that it has a yellow fringe border on 3 sides. So, when you enter your local courtroom and find a yellow fringed flag, you may want to seriously question under what laws people who appear in that courtroom are being tried. The U.S. Constitution, or the U.S. military, or maritime law, or the Uniform Commercial Code, which is corporate law, were governed by the laws of the country the flag represents. According to President Eisenhower, gold-fringed flags are under the rules and regulations of the military. As I've said, the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, in charge of the U.S. monetary gold reserves, has declared the United States in interregnum. That means it doesn't have a legitimate government. The United States is not being governed by its Constitution, although its people think that's the case. The United States is not governed by a legitimate government. It is in interregnum. Sri Mulyani Indrawati, chair of the Development Committee and Minister of Finance of Indonesia, frequently represented the World Bank at the G20. That means the Group of 20. And that is a tool of the network of global corporate control. And that network was identified by Vitali Glatfelder and Battiston of ETH Zurich. That's a university in Switzerland. The Board of Governors is the highest decision-making body of the IMF and World Bank. As we've seen, the Board of Governors is responsible for the global currency reset. I vote the shares of the United States on the boards of governors, on the boards of executive directors, and on the Development Committee during the interregnum in the legitimate government of the United States. In my letter to Sri Mulyani Indrawati, I've stated that the minutes of the Development Committee are as set forth in my letter, and that any country that doesn't agree is required to go on record in writing. I emailed the minutes to the 189 member countries' New York and Tokyo embassies. I posted them on the internet, and I also put them in the teleprompter for last week's segment on DCTV, which was uploaded on YouTube. Since the U.S. has over 16% of the votes, you can see why Ferdinand Marcos said that we were the trustee of civilization. The U.S. government is not legitimate, as its Constitution of 1789 is not in effect. The U.S. is in interregnum, and so are the rest of the member countries in the World Bank. We will be free of this monetary system, and everyone will be happier. The letter to Ambassador Budi Bowolaksono and Mulyani Indrawati was delivered on the 10th of October, and you can see the text of the letter. The corruption is even deeper than I thought, because there's a scam going when the people that work for the network of global corporate control were caught red-handed. And on the 13th of October, I tweeted, "This has to do with the people who work for the companies owned by the network of global corporate control. The banking cartel is insolvent, that means it's bankrupt, and it's getting wound down in the global debt facility with 95% likelihood. And if that doesn't happen, we're all into World War III. What we've learned today is that the people who work for the network of global corporate control are not going to join the rest of the Coalition for the Rule of Law until later. The power transition model from the National War College predicts how stakeholders, that's people who influence an issue, form coalitions in reaction to other stakeholders. What did Costco and the rest of the network of global corporate control do after my tweet that you all saw was time-stamped at 11:52 a.m.? That's on Friday the 13th. The delivery truck delivered the dishwasher anyway when I was out walking the dog at 7 p.m. The delivery truck driver pounded on my front door for an extended time and woke my daughter up in making the delivery. I had canceled my order twice. The first time was a week ago, and the second time was at 10 o'clock on Friday the 13th. I only realized that I had to cancel twice when the company who was going to install the dishwasher called me in the morning. I repeated twice to Costco that it's a scam for Costco to advertise that the cost of its dishwashers includes installation, and then Costco forgets to tell the people in some states that they actually are going to have to pay for the installation charges themselves. You would think that a company that's tweeted about and caught in a scam would try to get the cancellation processed correctly. How about a company that's part of the network of global corporate control? Maybe they're trying to intimidate people and have them give up all hope that there can be a peaceful resolution. Certainly, pounding on the door and refusing to go away sends a message. I had canceled the order also with my Costco charge card at Citibank, and I spoke to the fraud department. And when I spoke to them, all of these people proved to me actually that they knew that they were participating in a scam by their language. So I think we should probably go ahead to the outro. What do you think? Okay. Well, I found out that lots of Costco members are very angry about the scam. And a lot of people are asking me when we're going to exchange fake paper currency issued by the central banks for the monetary gold reserves in the global debt facility. What we can say is that the people who work for the companies that are part of the network of global corporate control are still part of the problem, and they're not yet part of the solution. Maybe this is changing because Costco asked the delivery company to pick up the dishwasher, and that company called me on the 16th of October to schedule the pickup for the 23rd. The Coalition for the Rule of Law is stronger than the network of global corporate control, or I would be out of business. But here I am telling you that the people working for companies owned by the network of global corporate control would rather keep a scam going than admit to their part in the scam. Stay tuned as the dominoes keep on falling and propelling us forward in the global currency reset. And then I signed off on the tweet. And I'm told that we have a little bit more time. So let me tell you how it has felt in the middle of this global currency reset. That is that each time I think we've solved the scam, it turns out we've got another layer of corruption. So we're simply going to keep on going until we've fully diagnosed the corruption. Caxel said the most important sentence in this segment. He said, "Keep at it. Those who are awakened are doing more damage than many others realize. Those of us awakened will awaken the others." So my job is to wake you all up, and I'm not going to go anywhere until that's happened. Until next week, I'm your host, Karen Hudes.